Hello, everybody. Welcome to Still Uncaptured, your favorite podcast with me, Khomotso Masunyane.
And myself, Undumiso Wakangcobo, umfana waseHammersdale, nakwamnamatha emaqadini. I keep on changing this intro, right?
It keeps fascinating me every week. I'm like, oh, Lord. What new Zulu lore are we going to find out about today?
You know what it does? It speaks to just how multidimensional we all are.
Yes.
We've got so many identities.
It's true.
Remember our episode about identities?
Yeah.
Where it's like, sometimes I'm not sure. Am I, when people ask me, where are you from? And I go, do I want to say, Hammersdale, or am I from, Kwamnamatha, Ngakanyuswa, Emaqadini?
So
It's
fascinating.
yeah.
I'm wondering what Siyabonga would have to say about Izithakazelo.
Izithakazelo.
Because they are so much about lineage.
Yes.
Right? And if we're arguing that all lineage is corrupted, then surely Itakazelo nazos that they're corrupted.
Not really. I wouldn't say so, because there it's just people's names. It's not people. There's no surnames there. There's no.
Okay.
It's basically just the fact that, you remember when we had that episode and I was saying, Ngundumiso kaphezu kwabantu kahlabe yakhe kababane kamadlukwane kanjila kasilwane, and so on and so forth. Those are just people. That is just basically part of how I know my history,
right?
At least all the way back to the sort of 16th century.
Yeah,
so,
which is incredible. It's an incredible thing to be able to have. So social media gives us a lot of access to a lot of interesting information and also to a lot of crap.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nonsense.
Excrement.
On social media. There's a lot of it on social media. So I don't know where you stand, but during the COVID vaccine, I really wanted to get a vaccine.
No, we were there.
I was like, Tumamina.
And it was also during the Tumamina.
It was kind of during the
Ramaphoria. Yes.
Ramaphoria. And I'm just like, when am I going to get the opportunity to be able to vaccinate? I wanted to vaccinate. I believed the science. I was just kind of like, you know what? Let's go get vaccinated so we don't die like flies, essentially. And then I was happy that I did, because particularly for traveling, it was impossible to go around without being able to travel if you were not vaccinated.
Yes.
So I was very happy that at least I was able to do that. However, over the next couple of years, my narrative kind of shifted. I'm not so convinced anymore that I needed the vaccine. I'm wary. There's a lot of conspiracy theories out there, and this would be one of them, right? There's a lot of conspiracy theories around the modalities of the vaccine. And you're a scientific guy, so you're always at pains to show the science of it. I'm telling you now, agna science.
Yeah.
Yeah, nginenkolo kuphela.
Yeah. In the name of Jesus.
Amen.
Pasha. Yeah.
So I'm looking at this to sort of say, Mara, it seems like a lot of information that you were given was either inaccurate or incomplete or missing something. What did they not tell us about it? First of all, there's not enough vaccines. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, vaccines are available for everybody. And then it's like, oh, vaccines are expiring because the supply and demand is not happening.
Yeah.
What was your COVID conspiracy theory journey?
I did not have one. And I'll tell you why. Because the little science that, and for me, the first, the starting point is this. By the end of this conversation, my message to anyone who's listening, who cares to listen to what I have to say, because a lot of people have got these things. So anytime anyone drops dead and they are 43, it's like, it must be the vaccine. Anytime people are talking about lethargy, right? And then, of course, there is what is it called? Long COVID, and so on. So at the end of it all, if you sum up what I'm about to say, it's this. Most of us, and when I say most of us, I mean literally probably 99% of us, you listening at home, we do not have enough information purely because we are not immunologists.
Mhm.
And therefore, for me, it is a message of sit down. Do not try, don't try to be an immunologist. You are not an epidemiologist, and so on. You do not know. So here's my analogy about that is that let's use the airplane. If you were on an aeroplane and the captain came, you know how they speak, and they're basically just telling you that the plane is in trouble. We've just lost engines or an engine and so on, and there's a crisis on board.
Mhm.
And there are 3 aeronautical engineers on the plane, right? And they're sitting there, and they are saying, and the captain comes to them and says, "Guys, what do we do?" Or just aviation experts, right? And you were on that plane, and they said, "Okay, so here's what's going to happen." And so maybe they decide. Remember the movie with Denzel,
Yep.
Flight, that we're going to invert the plane. That's the best way to actually do this, right?
Right.
Just I'm being dramatic, right? And then while all of this is happening, someone at the back who is a biblical studies teacher, high school, says, "No, no, 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 I disagree." Who do you listen to? It's your life now. You're on the plane. Who do you listen to?
The engineers.
The engineers and the experts.
Mhm.
And this is the problem with social media. The problem with social media is that all opinions are equal. Yeah, to me, so you are a social media bully. You are a bully when you say to them, "But guys, just listen to the experts." Yes, you might feel a certain way. So if you extend that particular analogy, and if you were to get onto the plane and you're saying some information you were not told, would you like to get on a flight? And by the way, to get on a flight, you've got to trust what? Science. Because science works. Guys, science works. Right? Science works 99% of the time. It works. The truth of the matter is that science does not, because nothing in this world works 100% of the time. And so are you asking me the question, did the vaccine kill people, the COVID? It absolutely did. How many? The numbers are coming in. Look, we're figuring this out. That is not an excuse to then decide that the science does not work. Because as you all know, even in aviation, planes go down. MH370. Does this mean that you're not now not going to get on a flight because some flights have actually gone down? And that's the problem with the conversation on social media. People shine so much spotlight on when the science has gone wrong. Now, you're talking about information. COVID was new, it had not existed before. There will always be wobbles with anything that is new. So there is information that you did not get purely because the scientists did not have it, because we were figuring it out. So here's the interesting thing about that. This is exactly what happened with polio. When it started, there were wobbles. What people don't seem to actually realize is that even to this day, other vaccines that have been around for years, but that number has now decreased so much more. So with COVID, the percentage of people that would have had adverse effects from the vaccine is obviously higher because if you are a public health official,
Right.
and you know that this thing is going to, and they knew that when you start out with COVID, but that could not have been the messaging at the time to say, but this will kill you. This might kill some of you. Because when you are a public health official, you are worried about an entire population. And the fact that there's going to be, and it sounds so careless what I'm saying right now, but they knew, science understood that some people were going to die. But that could not have been the messaging, because then people would not have taken the vaccine. And here's the truth of the matter. Those vaccines that we took, COVID, saved, if not hundreds of millions, tens of millions of lives that would have been lost. And you only have to go back to 1918 during the flu pandemic before we started developing vaccines. It would have obliterated populations. And so when people get into these conspiracy theories, I get bored. I roll my eyes because I'm just like, I don't care. These things work. And that's the thing. That's how the scientific method works.
See, I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. But I'm struck with the complexity of the ethical issues around here to say, you
Yeah.
know, people are going to die.
Yes.
I would like people to participate in these studies with full exposure and facts. Or like, this vaccine has a 50% of it's likely to kill you, whatever.
Yes.
It may not be to the benefit of the country. However,
Yeah.
as somebody to whom this vaccine is going to be tested,
Yes.
I think that's important information for me to know. And then I must decide whether I want to take the vaccine or not.
You know, despite what people think, science and scientists are absolutely ethical. Forget you Hollywood movies, because Hollywood movies are obviously telling those fringe stories that, you know, are out, you know, in that bell curve.
Yeah.
There's always that outlying thing. Of course, there are evil scientists, you know, somewhere that are tinkering with things. But you know what? The scientific method works, and I'll tell you why when it comes to that ethic. Was it more ethical for Dr. Zwelim Kiza, who I thought, oh man, I think he conducted himself admirably during that whole thing. I feel, right? Would it have been more ethical for him for his messaging to be like 50-50, take the vaccine, but it might kill you? Is this what you want? Because science, by the time they have the knowledge, every time you take itdisprin, there's that long paper that the contraindicators and so on. Science actually does warn you of these things. Most of us don't read all of those things, right? And with the COVID vaccines, there was that paper. Unfortunately, at the time, there had to be data collection that gives us that full exactly all the side effects. So the last thing you want, if you are taking medicine, is it more ethical to say to people, hey, this might not kill you? And then what happens is 60% of the population says, I'm not coming, right?
I think they have a right to.
So that the entire population is obliterated.
That's what has to happen.
I cannot disagree more. I think it would have been absolutely irresponsible for our public health officials to come with that messaging, such that in the end we are sitting here, because COVID, it wasn't maybe it might kill you. It was going to obliterate us. We might be sitting here with a population of 38 million versus 60 million, right? And so when you are making those public health decisions at that point, you are not looking at the individual. So there's someone who's listening to me who has lost a loved one, and thousands of people have. Some people are now having ailments and so on. And it is obviously as a direct result of this. But they are such a minute percentage. And this is a problem with social media. You see, social media, if I believe, for instance, before social media, I hadn't met really too many people who believe that the earth is flat. And the thing with social media is that it allows people to find like-minded people, right, at a percentage that is substantial enough that there are now 250,000 of us. And there are flat earth societies. Of course the earth is not flat, right? Because there are obviously, loony bins out there and so on. So ethically, I think that the messaging was correct. And all these conspiracy theories about Bill Gates, Bill Gates is not one of my favorite people in the world. But when it comes to this, I must confess, I think that he was absolutely correct, because lives were saved. And when you are making those decisions at that level, you are not thinking about it at an individual level. You're not thinking about your aunt that you lost. You're not thinking about whoever it is that lost. And of course, this has happened. And people don't even actually think about these things as flipping painkillers kill people to this day. Mm-hmm. We know that data is there. People they die from the medicines that we take. Is it unethical that these painkillers, you're suffering from a toothache right now, you're going to take this, you're going to go and take this thing, and it might kill you. Yeah. But you are such, if you do, kill over and die, you are such a minuscule part of the entire population. Public health officials are there to save populations. They're not there to
Okay.
save individuals.
Okay. I argue that Bill
Yeah.
Gates's personal fortune
Mhm.
is so tied in
Yes.
with the COVID vaccine
Yes.
that it makes sense
Yes.
why he would argue for it.
Yes.
Because personally, he got incredibly wealthy.
He absolutely did. He killed it. And that's exactly what Big Pharma also does. What it does not take away is the data. And this is where the science comes in, is that these vaccines saved lives significantly. Like, it's not even comparable. It's not like they saved 70% of lives versus 30 that died. We're talking in the 90s, right? It's 97%. I do not have the data right now in my hand, but the people that, for every 100 people that took the vaccines, 97 were actually saved. And for me, that ends the argument.
Do you concede that, particularly on this continent,
Yeah.
the results were not quite what they were? We were having graves being dug for us
Yeah.
because it was assumed, or like, oh, they're going to die like flies.
Yeah,
And we didn't.
because we took vaccines.
Is it because we took vaccines?
It is absolutely because we took the vaccines. And this is the thing with when people don't think, and I don't purport to be an expert, and it's very important to say this, is that I am also speaking from a level of, which is where I started, of absolute ignorance, because I am not an expert in immunology. I'm not an expert in any form of medicine, but you know how much of a geek I am. And I've been reading these things. And if I have to make a choice between listening to Mel Gibson, who absolutely believes that this, or I need to listen to Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's an astrophysicist, to understand science, I'd always listen to Neil. I'm not going to listen to Mel Gibson. And this is the problem, is that on social media, like I said, all opinions are equal, but opinions are not equal. Back to our aviation, my aviation
comparison.
Analogy. I will always listen to the expert. I sit down, because if someone knows more than I do, then I just gotta sit down and shut up. And it doesn't mean that it makes, the person who knows more a bully. So if you are, for instance, having this debate on social media, and because this is what happens on social media, you're having a debate about the law, and then a constitutional law expert comes in and says something on social media. Little old me, who's never read a single law book, hi, so are you being you being a bully? You are shutting me down, and so on. Let's agree to disagree. No,
Right.
let's not agree to disagree.
Right.
Let's just agree that he knows more than I do, or she knows more than I do. And
Sure.
and this is part of the problem with conspiracy theories. A lot of people that I respect, some of them are my friends. I almost said one name of someone that I love so dearly, who, I actually, in the end, I just ended up just muting her, because I just thought, you are sounding so, you are off your rockers right now. And the problem with social media is this person has got thousands of people that listen to her. And that is the problem for me about this thing.
All right.
So, and you can tell how passionate I am about this, because I think if anything, I think that people need to educate themselves on the scientific method. Even if you don't have to understand the science itself, but the scientific method, guys, it works. That's why you are able to open that bottle of Coke and drink it without having to worry. That is science at work. That's why you don't worry that when you put your food, in the microwave, it's going to explode,
Right.
or that your phone has got radiation that is taking away your fertility and so on. Science works, guys. I mean, I do not know how much more you can actually say this,
Okay, save that thought. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Still Uncaptured with me, Khomoso Matsunyane.
And myself, Undumiso Kangcobi Qadi. Yes.
We're getting into Easter Mapaloba, or sometimes known as silly season.
Is it called silly season?
Well, I call it because once a year we
Yeah.
suspend our disbelief, okay,
Yeah.
and we say a woman can fall pregnant without conception.
It's
We
called
believe that
Immaculate Conception.
immaculate conception.
And we are entitled to our beliefs.
You really are. But can I just say you
Yes.
sound crazy? You, Mr. Science. You, Mr. Science. Ainangondo. Nto ewibuhang. You just gave an impassioned argument about why the science matters. Now all of a sudden, Mary or halalelang.
Listen, I don't know. Okay, I'm just gonna play devil's advocate. Mr. Not Mr. Scientist, Mr. Believer in Science, right? So the thing about this is that I think that what is even crazier is the fact that people that worry me are people who take these things literally. I think that my mother is entitled. I think it gives her comfort, and so on. We can have another discussion about, the effects of religion,
Right.
in history. But I'm saying, but surely any rational person understands that this is just mythology,
Right.
because stories. There's nothing unique about this Immaculate Conception, because remember, Christianity started in the Mediterranean region, the place that right now is up in flames. The Gaza war, right? So this was a carpenter's son who came from that particular region, assuming that Jesus' historicity is actually accurate. There's debate.
It was a couple of 100 years after his demise.
Yes.
So you ask yourself, who were the people writing about Jesus Christ?
And the whole Immaculate Conception thing is everywhere in European mythology, right? Even in Persian mythology, right? There have been, that I know of, something like 23 exact same stories of a woman who had some voice,
Right.
and then they gave birth to a child without any coitus, and so forth. And so when this religion 300 odd years later came to Rome, then the Romans came and injected their own little flavor, to it. So if you were to wake people who were actually there in the first century, there was no such thing as Immaculate Conception.
No.
It's made up. It's mythology. And the question is, what was the purpose of that particular
To
mythology?
make you believe, because if you can make people believe,
I know.
you can make them believe in anything. For
Yes.
example,
Yeah.
I think like the 12 apostles.
Yes.
We talk about them as if they were these respectable men who were so mlandela.
Saint Peter. The rock upon which the Roman Catholic Church is
Was
built.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I ask myself,
Yeah.
where are we going with this?
Yeah.
Why is it that we can believe something so obviously false?
Sure.
But Mina, because I'm thinking, you want that the 12 disciples. Ubabagabani or Abashia, just like that out of the blue, and says, I'm going to follow that man with the sandals. But Ndumiso, why?
Yeah.
Because he's the way, the truth, and the light. Kabanga.
Yes.
Well, literally, Jesus probably sounded like a mental case.
Yeah.
Right? He sounded like a mental case.
And of course, I imagine that in his lifetime, a lot of people actually really did think that this guy is not okay.
No, completely. You would, the things that he was claiming, I mean, are kind of ridiculous. For you are God's gift to the world.
And not only what's even more is that you are God's son.
You direct son.
Only son.
Only son.
Yes.
Right. And isn't it interesting that the Immaculata only happened that one time and that was it?
Yeah. So here's again, I'm trying to, and I'm saying this because I have a mother who is a devout Christian. I've got a brother who's a Catholic priest, Father Mxolisi. I apologize. But actually, I'm not apologizing, because we have these conversations well until 4 a.m. So he knows my views on all of these things. And so here's the thing about it, is that Jesus Christ, or I like to call him Yeshua bin Yosef, because I mean, probably that it would have been his name at the time. The thing about beliefs is exactly the same thing, because the moment I start saying to you, "Nawe la madlozi akho phahla kuwe," you sound crazy.
I know.
You sound absolutely crazy that you umile laphana how fuze.
Yeah.
Papa where.
Yep.
You sound unhinged. You sound like
Delusional.
it's a and the truth of the matter is that from a scientific point of view, religion is a form of hallucination.
Right.
You're just hallucinating. You're talking to imaginary people, imaginary friends and so forth. And I know this will be offensive to a lot of people, but that's why I'm qualifying it by saying this is not me saying this. This is the science. Neuroscience has actually really, I mean, if religion weren't quite so powerful, and the people that if the world weren't so powerful, honestly speaking, psychology and neuroscience would actually classify it as a form of mental illness. It truly, I mean, unfortunately, that's the scientific view on it. And I'm not speaking for all science, but what I'm saying is that we obviously, but we've got, and I have to say, I've got to be gracious, because I also believe in a lot of things that just make absolutely no sense. All of us do, which is why I went for Amadlozi as well, because quite honestly, really, like,
you sound crazy.
Like, really?
Like you're wronging the past. Like you can speak to people who are dead and that have been dead for a while. And
but they're always angry.
Oh my goodness, they're always angry about something.
They're always thirsty.
They're always thirsty, and you gotta fix their problem. Somebody in this lineage has to fix somebody who died 200 years ago.
Right now, because as we're recording this, we're going towards Easter. The goats in KZN are just shaking in their boots. Right. Oh my God. Right. The clever ones are like trying to feign illness and just trying to look as thin as possible, just so that they're not chosen, because we're slitting their throats and we're doing these things. And also, we're also so confused, because we're doing these rituals and we do them at Easter, and we're trying to. So which one is it? Is it Abapansi, or is it Jesus? Because I remember being at home, like we're doing a function, and we're doing this thing, we're slaughtering, we're appeasing the thing, slaughtering the animals, we're killing these animals and so on. And the night before, if you go, Mama Jesus. So which one is it? Is it Jesus or Amakadi that are beneath the ground?
I think if you follow any kind of African religion right now, you will find that people are mixing.
Yes.
And as they go. Yeah. Yep. It's like I said, remember when you laughed at me, like, Nyapasa.
Yes.
But I also add in there, and in the mighty name of Jesus. Just in case.
You are hedging your bets.
Whatever gotta lose.
What you gotta lose.
Whatever gotta lose. But you're right. Like, if I'm listening to myself, I'm like, I look at myself sometimes, that 3 o'clock can't sleep kind of vibe, and I'm like, what am I doing?
Do you know, though, that having said all of what I have just said, but do you know what bothers me? Is the unique hue of religious fervor on this continent. Do you know that in Europe right now, the people that actually brought us this, the churches are empty. You go to France, hardly anyone goes to church. You go to Belgium, no one goes to church. Everywhere, religion is declining. In Europe, particularly, who are the people that actually spread this religion across the world?
Right.
But here, I mean, I remember Tebogo, my wife, she is a process development expert, really. And when she was at university, she used to look after Africa. So she'd be going to Cote d'Ivoire, particularly in West Africa, because that is where the TB Joshuas, the Bushiris, where it is, the religious fervor on this continent is seriously problematic.
Right.
Because here's the problem with it, is that it comes in it takes the place of rationality,
There we go.
and it takes the place of doing the work. So she would come to a factory. She's there to run trials and so on. It's shift changeover, right? And so she is now being asked. She's there to oversee production and so on. And instead of discussing the problems that happened in the previous shift, what happened on that shaft, what was happening, blah blah blah. Do you know what would happen in places like Ghana and Nigeria and so on?
Prayer.
A whole prayer
Yeah.
ahead of production.
Yeah.
But guys, if production didn't go well, it had nothing to do with Jesus. It had something to do with someone who messed up, who did not do their job. And this is the problem. And it has crept into South African society as well, where people are now replacing rationality, work. So, and this is the thing, personal accountability at the window, because
Right.
leave it up to Jesus.
Right.
And that is my biggest problem with religion.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm quite curious to
Yeah.
read Bonso's book.
Yeah.
About how religion, which means that the extreme right from the
Yes.
United States has sort of been adopted lock, stock, and two smoking
Yeah.
barrels on this continent in a way that is affecting sexual and reproductive health.
Oh. So here's the thing. Right now, we're sitting here. Maybe this episode might not air because Donald J. Trump has gone berserk.
Right.
Right now.
Right.
And World War III, and
And he's picking on us, hey?
The last time we were this close to World War III was
Yeah.
probably during the Bay of Pigs in 1962, that Cuba Missile Crisis and so on. And we've never been this close because that man, he's lost it. And do you know how he got into power? Because Middle America, the Bible Belt of America, all Trump had to say to them is that I am going to fight transgender on your behalf.
Right.
And so I'm also very curious. I'm also curious to read, our friend Ponzo Pilani's book about how it has affected all of this, because it is a problem.
Yeah.
Because rationality goes out the window. I am sorry. This is the truth.
And
right?
I mean, we live in a secular state, but you wouldn't know it. Because
Do
if
we?
you listen to the radio shows and radio stations,
Yes.
Christianity is very much the religion of the day.
I mean,
It's de facto.
all the indigenous language
Yeah.
radio stations,
Yeah.
even commercial radio stations, gospel has,
Yeah.
it's on the rise. I mean, there are radio stations that never actually used to play gospel music. So religious fervor is also on the rise in this country. So I ask you again, you say, this is a secular country? I do not know so much about that, because even in this country, I have seen political parties. Ubaba wethu umsholozi was also pastor, ministers, before they start meetings. Now there's prayer. Government departments,
And
my
I think
friends.
it's deliberate.
It's very deliberate, because the thing about religion is that it placates people. It makes people go, leave it up to the Lord. You know?
Right. Yeah. Which is messed up.
Oh, yeah.
Because we struggle to connect reality with reality.
Yeah. And I fundamentally do not have a problem with religion, because, like I said, people have got the right to believe what they want to believe. Because I've also got my own beliefs. I just can't think of any right now. But the point there being, it is the hue of religion that we're getting on this continent, where prayer is now, what is that thing that you said people should
read more.
Read
as much as we pray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pray less and read
read
more,
more.
I think is what you said. And that is the problem that I have, is when religion replaces just plain reading. Some things just require for you to open a book, read it, and realize Jesus is not a part of this. He's got nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Still Uncaptured. I want to I want to shogoloza the conversation,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
There's a lot of begging in South Africa.
Understandably.
People are desperate.
Mm.
They have no cash. So wherever you go, you're likely to encounter a beggar at some point.
The rich are getting richer, particularly the politically connected.
Yeah.
And the poor are really
Infinitely poorer.
people who never used to struggle even before are now struggling. People are struggling even more than during the 9 wasted years.
Right.
Like, it's bad.
It is pretty bad.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, when you see white people begging, do you give them money?
I live in Boksburg, right? So I live in Boksburg, and in Boksburg, you've got petrol attendants that are white. You've got car guards that are white, and they're on the rise even in Boksburg. I'm starting to see them everywhere else, right? And so forth. And I remember driving with Sihayo, my last born, who's in matric this year. And, I remember him looking at me because he knows how generous I tended to be with beggars. And it's going to be very controversial what I'm about to say, and which is that, I'll even sometimes, just give like a 50 bucks or 100 bucks to someone who's busy begging when I've got the money, which is not a lot these days, right? And I remember him looking at me because every time we go past a white beggar, I sit there and I'm like, and I look at this, I'm like, this is Gert, of course. We used to work at Spornet. And, this is
protected job.
With a protected job, with the standard 3, looking after men that were working with a standard 10 or grade 12 now with a matric. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, why am I giving money to this person? And so, as racist as it might sound, I don't.
Interesting.
I struggle because I'm sitting there and I'm thinking for every one of him, it's just purely demographics. There are 9 black people that I could be giving this money to, and this is who I give the money to.
And can I say that white people really don't like to see white people begging?
No, they don't.
So I think chances are those people are likely to make their money quicker.
Yes.
At the street corner in order to kind of like get out of there. But I was watching myself and thinking, you're kind of a punk for that, Komoto.
Yeah.
Poverty is poverty.
Exactly.
If ulambile.
Yes.
It doesn't matter whether you're Koos or Gert.
Humans are humans.
Do you understand? Humans are humans and we all have needs, whatever those needs are. It kind of bothers me when I see there's some influencers who who's the influence is giving to poor people.
Yes.
So like there's one called Ali Boy. Just like, count the money. How much is that? 50 rand. How much is that? And I'm like, so Ali Boy kind of like poverty porn that I don't like. Because I'm like, you're gonna give this person 1,000 rands. Why do we have to count?
Content.
It's like you're paying imalini, basically. And that really upsets me. Like, why are you doing this? And I think that he really loves giving to white people. So he's got the opposite of my problem. Like, ha 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 ha. Yes. Look at me, I'm so generous. I even give to white people. There will never be a white person that goes past them as I'm for something.
No, he really does go for them, right?
Yeah.
Because I think it's also an attitude that he shares with a vast number of black people. And then you and I'll say this, right? Giving someone who is begging money, I don't think that the person who's receiving the money gives 2 hoots
about who's giving them the money,
or how. Even if you said to the poor person, okay, kneel down on your knees and do this to me and pray and call me Jesus or whatever,
they'll do it.
They'll still take it because I have never been that poor that I could stand and beg. Because think about it. You look at it and you just think, because when people don't give money to beggars, right? They always say, "Ay, Basile, they've got homes." Okay, so the question is, even if you say Basile and whatever their clever and they're trying to hustle you. But would you be able to do that hustle? So there's a certain level of desperation, including the white people that I don't give money to. And I realize that it's something that I've got to work on. But I am a product of apartheid. You know, I grew up at a time when, you know, there was a certain way that white people treated me. I mean, I still remember going to Durban with my mother carrying bags on the beachfront in Durban, looking at my mom. It's like, but there's space here. Why don't we? It's like, no, this is a whites only beach. And so retribution is not something that should be a part of it. I just have a particular discomfort that I need to work on. So when I look at people who are begging, I do not want people to be dancing for me,
Right.
doing coonery for me,
Right.
you know, and whatever. But there's also, I find myself that I'm more likely to give. So, for instance, on my way here to the studio in Rosebank, my route went past the corner of Louis Porter Avenue and Osborne, there by Victory Theatre, which I call the Umoja Theatre.
Right.
So in that corner, and there was a young man begging there, and I just thought, this is so novel, because he was actually reading a novel. So he just stands at that corner, and you can see that he's not pretending to be reading.
Right.
He's actually reading. And, you know, if I had money on me at that particular moment, and I hardly ever have cash on me, I would have probably given that money. But there is just something about the poverty porn that you are talking about. Because there's another one, I think, that I see all the time, B.I. Pagati.
Right.
He also does the same thing.
Right.
And there's also that whole, almost like that, you know, that Nollywood storytelling of, so he'll go to some pretty girl and say, Sisi, can I talk to you? Sisi, can I talk? And then Sisi is walking away. Of course, Sisi is going to go away. You're a stranger.
Right.
This is a country
Right.
where, you know, women get abducted and so on. So she walks away. So now to prove to her,
She should have come.
she should have come. Now in front of her, now he must give money to this boy. Balalapo, Malin. Malin. 100.
It's so ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. But you and I are probably just being judgmental right now. But to the person that's actually receiving the money,
right. What do they care?
They don't care.
Right.
They don't care how the money came to them.
And that's the other thing. It's like, do we have to film it all?
Yeah.
Does it have to be part of your content?
Yeah.
If you were just doing this out of the goodness of your heart, why does it have to be content?
You know, so here's my thing there, where you and I might disagree, is that for me, they're giving someone money. Someone went to bed with food in their tummies.
Sure.
And maybe how they do it is not for you. Is not for you and I to judge, because how many thousands have you given out to beggars yourself? And so for me, I also be like,
fair enough.
I'm like, B.I. Pagati, you're giving people money.
Right.
And I am not. So
I hear these people, Babo Fakabatu.
Okay.
Babo Fakabatu.
Yes.
Yeah. Basically to get their wealth.
Yes.
And so this is part of the bopping
process.
Uktwala.
The whole snake culture.
Or whichever one it is that, you know, basically, like, if you believe that because he's got to keep giving out this money, otherwise, tell him apart.
Well, that for me, that means probably, if I'm going to be consistent, is that then maybe that's a positive spin-off of Uktwala. Purely because you know my views on it.
Right.
I do not believe that Uktwala actually works. And so, you know, if they're giving someone, like I said, there are people who live, Gogo, who on her pension is having to feed like 13. Do you understand? Do you understand what 1,000 rand is to Gogo? If you were to put these people here right now and say, and I'm not saying that just because people are poor, it's okay that they should be so desperate that they'll take any money. But all I'm saying is, but because you see these women now, and I'm seeing more and more of it, women just out in the field, just weeds.
Right.
weeds, just taking just any edible weeds.
Right.
It is the poverty in this country has reached that level.
No, completely.
Yeah.
Let's take a little break. Welcome back to the show. I want to say something a little bit controversial.
Uh-huh.
Mm.
This is still uncaptured. Be uncaptured. Being uncaptured also means just saying things that are unpopular.
I'm not going to get love for this,
Of course.
but I have a question.
Mhm.
The other day, I'm driving my mom's car, and somebody in front of me took out a paper bag,
Mhm.
KFC,
Yes.
and just threw it outside of his window.
A very usual sight on our roads.
A very usual sight. And I remember just thinking, oh, namahloni, Puti. You know what I mean? I didn't say that out loud because I didn't want to get smacked. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking to myself, Black people, we litter.
Mm.
I'm disturbed at how much Black people litter. We've made it a part of our culture. Because if you tell people not to litter, they'll tell you they're creating jobs.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you can point out to them that, but you wouldn't do this in your own home.
Mm-hmm.
So why would you do it on the street?
And the same people do not litter at Eastgate?
No.
But if you go into any mall frequented by black people in the townships, there is litter, including inside in the corridors, right? So what is your question that you're asking me?
Do Black people litter more than most?
It's complex.
It's a generalization.
It is a generalization. I think yes and no. I think that in this country, 80% of the population is Black, right? And so I would imagine so that for every 10 sweet wrappers, 8 of them would be from Black people, because that's who is in this country. But you touched upon the fact that it's become a culture where if you go into any suburb, even when the suburb, the demographics have changed to the point where the suburb is now 80% Black, there's still no litter in that particular suburb, right? Although some suburbs, as they go down, Rosettenville. I mean, I remember when I first came to Joburg, Rosettenville was actually quite a nice place and so on. But as the color of the people change, so does littering. So here's my question to you: Is it a Black people thing, or is it a particular demographic of Black people? Does it have to do with levels of education? Does it have to do with, because I live in Boksburg, and I know what Brakpan looks like, and there's a very high population of white people in Brakpan who are not as sophisticated as the white people in Bryanston. Again, generalizations. And Brakpan is pretty filthy. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
But I think that when you go into our townships, and which is why, and then people don't make the connection between that littering and the fact that when the rains such as we've had come and our townships, people are kayaking, they are canoeing down the streets. It's because the drains are so blocked, right? And I recently saw something that blew my mind, where this person, and of course they were Black, they just stopped the car in the middle, and there was like a field in Boksburg, and this person just came out with just bags and just threw the bags like in the on the field and so on, and drove off. And it speaks to a particular, you ask the questions like, do you do this in your own home? Because even in the townships, some of the cleanest houses you'll find anywhere in this country, go to Alex, go inside people's houses. People keep their houses clean, but in their cleanliness, they just throw. And it's about the fact that they don't feel that the the shared spaces belong to them. It's
Right.
almost it's someone else's problem. But my yard must be clean. And so, do you know how you know where to dump your rubbish in a township? Illegally dump. Just go around, look for a place where there's a municipal sign that says "Do not litter." That's where people know
Right.
where to litter.
Right.
So, Houston, we've got a problem.
Yeah.
We've got a problem, and there's a I once saw, and I think I told you the story. I once saw this guy, this one of these S60 Volvos. You know how nice a black Volvo is, like nice. He was looking good. He was wearing. You could see his shoes are like at least $5,000, and nicely shaven. Car is clean. He's clean. He's with his son, who's wearing like a blazer, clearly, from one of the Model C or private schools, and he. And the boy, I think, was having something, was eating something. And the boy, clearly at school, he's being taught, not to litter. So he's busy folding this thing up. He's trying to get into the car. Does this guy not look at the boy? He's like, and you could see this poor boy was just like,
I want
and
this
and then he threw it. Because what do you do with your rubbish? When you've got rubbish, what do you do when
in
you're
the
going
car?
In the car?
I always have plastic.
Yeah.
Because I know like you need a plastic, so I always have an extra plastic bag. That is the garbage.
Yeah, no, because that's exactly how I am. I can't even, I go into my wife's car, whatever. There's like tissues everywhere because she cannot bring herself. And this is how we've brought our children. My children do not know how to litter.
Right.
We've just taught them like no one will ever open the window
right.
and throw things out the window. I will tell you this though. Sometimes if I see a veld and I'm eating a banana, because I understand the science that a banana peel, if I throw it into the veld, it just becomes part of, compost and it's not going to be unsightly. But I would still not throw that banana peel onto tarmac. I wouldn't throw it on the road because it's unsightly. But if I throw it into
and
the
it's
veld,
dangerous also, bananas.
Yeah,
it's car slide.
Yeah, exactly.
Fisheries.
Yeah. So littering, guys. Here's my question to you. When we were growing up, there were government-sponsored programs.
Zap it in the zibby.
Zap it in the zibby. What has happened to all those programs?
Right.
I remember in Mpumalanga Township in Hammersdale, there'd be like a day where all the schools would just suspend schooling.
Yeah.
Like after lunch, there is no schooling. Children in uniform are going out to get given bibs, the zibby cans, and we go out with plastics. And we would clean the township. Why is this not happening now? It's for me, it's worrying because it speaks to a particular psyche.
Right.
A psyche that says, because South African public spaces, our producer Nell was talking about the parks, beautiful parks that get built, monuments to this, that, and the other. She was talking about a park, I think in was it El Dorado Park, to one of those, I think a child who was slain for muti or something, or ritual, whatever. And she says, you come there now and you look at it and you go, what has happened to this place? The nearest township to where I live is Wattville in Benoni. And I go and they're just like this park. And all people use that park for now is to sit on camp masters with a makula. And after they leave.
It's a mess. It's a mess.
Do you remember the Japanese fans during the World Cup?
Yeah.
Why can't we just bring that culture back? And then some people will say to you, I've had my, my friend Andile Mletama, who once, I put a post up on Facebook and I was like, but guys, this littering. And he's like, you are bothering, you're such a petty bourgeois liberal, worrying about nothing. And so, but you understand the psyche of what it means when you do not love your public spaces so much that you are just willing to just leave it.
Destroy it.
Yeah, destroy it. Yeah.
No, completely. I hear you. So Zappa and the Zibi must come back, basically. Parents, you are the biggest influence on your child's life. If you teach your children not to litter, they won't.
They won't.
Because, when you like, we could hear our parents' voices in our heads, even if they were miles away. And that's kind of like the principle that I'd like to say. I can hear my mother, and she's not going to be happy about this. What did they say? Like integrity is doing the right thing even when nobody's looking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it also, and one of the biggest problems is we're almost creating children that are culturally schizophrenic, in the sense that when this child is at school, so you have taken out every single month 15,000 rand of your hard-earned money, sent them to this private school where this child knows not to litter. They get home, they understand that it's okay, which goes back to the point that I was making, where it's okay to litter in the township. What are we saying? It's okay to litter in the township. But the same mother, by the way, who litters everywhere, who throughout that Kentucky, when they walk into Sandton City, do they litter?
No.
What is that about? So what you are actually saying is that there is no more value in Sandton City than there is in walking around in Alex.
Yeah.
And that's problematic for
It's
me.
majorly problematic. All right, when we come back, we are closing down the show. Don't go away.
All right, we're about to wrap up this particular episode, but guys, thank you so much for the overwhelming reaction to this podcast. I mean, we're excited. You know, we did think that we were going to do well, but probably not this well. We never thought there's going to be like an episode that will get 400,000 reactions. So as we close this, and by the way, continue doing it, right?
Yes, please.
Continue engaging with us on Spotify, and we're getting there. We responding to all your comments. We love to actually see your comments, right? But as we wrap up, I want to just have a little bit of fun with you.
Okay.
Right? You know what's ringing in my head is that jingle we used to have when we used to wrap up the show, GMG. Da-dum, 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 da-dum.
Right.
Yeah, we can always insert it. Just have a little bit of fun, just to show you how horrible I am.
What in that case you are?
I'm a night guy. Yeah, just want to ask you a couple of questions, right?
Okay.
I've got 6 people. I want to see who your winner is.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you 6 actors. You've seen this game played all over the place, right? So here's my first question. Will Smith or Jamie Foxx?
That's slap, man. Jamie Foxx.
Jamie Foxx.
Yeah.
All right.
As a singer and a musician.
Yeah.
I don't particularly care for him as a comedian.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you and I are exactly the same. Yeah, Jamie Foxx is comedy.
Yeah.
His last special, terrible. Terrible. All right, so you got Jamie Foxx winning that particular round. Jamie Foxx, Lawrence Fishburne.
Lawrence
Fishburne.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a goat, man. He's a goat.
Okay.
I'm thinking of like what is that movie with the young boys? The
which one?
Boy.
Oh yes.
Yeah, that one.
Oh, but also, I mean, as Ike.
Of course. In What's Love Got to Do with It? No, totally.
And also one of my favorite ones, Neo.
Yeah.
I loved it. Okay. Lawrence Fishburne or Samuel L. Jackson?
Sam the man.
No, but his body of work, man.
No.
No.
You can't compete.
I don't think anyone has actually surpassed him as well. I think
he's one of the biggest selling artists of all time.
No, I think he's the number 1 box office draw of all time, right?
Wow.
Okay, Samuel L. Jackson or Morgan Freeman? Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
All right. Samuel L. Jackson or Denzel Washington?
Samuel L. Jackson.
Still Samuel L. Jackson?
Yeah.
Okay, Samuel L. Jackson takes it.
Yep. He's my favorite.
Yeah. And so, guys, that's a wrap.
Yep. Thank you very much for joining us this week. Don't forget to tune in again next week. Bye bye.